The term mental health has a lot of negative associations with it. It has a lot of stigma attached to it. We tend to think, illness, crazy, depression, schizophrenia, misery. And physical health, it's the gym, 5 a day, enjoying yourself. This is something we need to talk about a lot more because actually we all have mental health. And what we do makes a big difference to our minds. And so we should be talking about it in the same way as our physical health. It is as important. And yet we don't. And polling that Mindapples did with the mental health charity Mind a couple of years ago, we discovered that actually almost 3/4 of us feel that mental health and well-being is not discussed openly enough in UK society. And actually more than half of the people we spoke to had never thought about what they could do to look after their minds before. Almost everybody said that they thought their mental health was as important as their physical health. And what's really interesting is that, again, more than half were interested in knowing more. So there is a real gap here. There's something that we've missed in our society, and that's the gap that we've been aspiring to plug. And there are an increasing number of organisations and individuals noticing that. So that's what we're at this tipping point, I think, is that we may actually be at the point where we know enough to at least begin to start teaching the general public about how our minds work. Of course we don't know everything. This is an emerging science, neuroscience in particular, is still relatively in its infancy, and yet there are a lot of things that we generally seem to be converging on that we agree on, and so there's a lot that we could talk about. Most people will go, mind, oh, that's here, and then self, oh, hang on, that's sort of here. And yet, the experience of being in our minds is very much the experience of being ourselves. This is the kind of the window through which we navigate reality. And so when we're talking about a mind, we need to get a bit of a grip on what that means. But in fact, what we usually are talking about when we point to there, we actually really mean our brains. And that is the story that we've often got, is that we are our brains, that the science of neural scanning has shown that we have all of these extraordinary things going on in our heads when we experience all of the things in our lives. And so it's almost as if we could sort of cut off our heads and have ourselves frozen, and then we come back exactly as we are, or have ourselves uploaded to the web and we would still be basically ourselves. And so that's kind of become our sense of self. We also are learning that mental energy is finite. Controlled thought is actually quite a physical process. It will tire you out the more you do of it. So exercising willpower to control your impulses or thinking through complex decisions will actually deplete your mental resources. And the more you do of it, the worse you get at doing it. And you're not necessarily aware of that, but you should be taking it into account. And this is something that actually is starting to cross over into some areas of how we design our lives and work. Imagine what it would be like if we designed our workplaces, our banking system, the House of Commons, to conserve our mental resources. Would we make better decisions? I think perhaps. And Barack Obama has actually even applied this to his presidency. He read this study and he gave an interview for Vanity Fair a few years ago where he said you need to focus your decision-making energy. You need to routinize yourself. So perhaps there is something for us to learn there. And the other thing is about stress, that we hear a lot of talk about stress. You will hear people saying a little bit of stress is good for you. This is not really true. Pressure can be good. We like challenge. We like to hit targets that we weren't sure if we could hit. But stress is the point where the pressure gets too much and it starts to harm your health and your performance. And it particularly is bad for making us take risks. Men, particularly when they're under stress, will tend to take decisions faster and make more risky decisions. And this is where you get the all-male boardrooms, for example, when there's a problem in the company and you just get that people saying, we've just got to roll the dice on this one, fellas. We've got to punch our way out of this crash. And then looking back a couple of years later and thinking, why did we think that was a good idea? What was going through our minds? So we need to get a grip on it. Asking people to be stressed at work is a great risk for the business. How many more corporate disasters do we need before we start to realize that we can't manage our minds like that and we can't manage our people like that? And because we're not evolved for our environment. Stress is an ancient fear response designed to keep us safe from tiger attacks. It's not so useful for regulating interest rates. Our slogan at Mindapples is to make looking after our minds as natural as brushing our teeth. But you think about, let's use the analogy of dental health to mental health, because it's only one letter different, so we can steal all the research, right? It's fine. And if you think about how much worse it is for your mind to fall apart than for your teeth to fall out, how much more destructive it is for your work, your relationships, your life, how much harder it is to fix, then why do we have a $31 billion global dental hygiene market and no equivalent vertical for looking after our minds? The will is there. We know people want it. It's time for everyone to start stepping up and providing it.